It all began with a strange silence in the Capitol briefing room. Adam Schiff entered, his usual composure on display, but his eyes flicked warily around the room. Something felt off. Journalists, aides, even members of his own party seemed unusually tense. Then came the first hit. Kash Patel and Dan Bongino were nowhere in sight, but their presence was undeniable. An anonymous dossier had been circulated to major outlets just hours earlier. It contained time-stamped communications, internal memos, and audio recordings, all linked to Schiff's office. The subject? Secret backchannels with politically motivated operatives, pushing intelligence assessments that were later proven false. By the time Schiff reached the podium, murmurs in the press corps had turned into hushed conversations and buzzing phones. Someone leaned into Schiff's ear and whispered, "They've gone public." His hands gripped the podium just a bit tighter. Across town, Kash Patel and Dan Bongino were sitting calmly on a live stream, over 1 million people tuned in. "We didn't want to do it like this," Bongino began. "But the lies have gone too far. Adam Schiff knew exactly what he was doing, and we have the proof." Patel added, "This isn't about politics. It's about the abuse of national intelligence and the betrayal of the American people. And no one is above accountability, not even Schiff." The Capitol press corps erupted. Schiff's face paled as he tried to dismiss the claims as baseless deflection. But the evidence was no longer in the shadows. And this was only the beginning. As Schiff exited the podium, cameras still flashing, his team rushed behind closed doors. Staffers scrambled to contain the fallout, but it was already too late. Kash Patel wasn't done. Just minutes after the press conference, Patel dropped another bombshell, a detailed timeline showing Schiff had received warnings from career analysts, warnings that directly contradicted statements he later made on national television. "The documents are clear," Patel said firmly on air. Schiff was briefed multiple times. He didn't just ignore the warnings, he buried them. Bongino chimed in with fire. This wasn't incompetence. This was calculated. Schiff knew he had no case but pushed it anyway, for headlines, for power. And now we're pulling the curtain back. Meanwhile, back at Schiff's office, phones were lighting up. Several committee members began distancing themselves. One even called for an internal ethics review, anonymously. That night, media coverage exploded. Fox News, Newsmax, independent podcasters, and even a few legacy outlets couldn't ignore it anymore. Was Adam Schiff lying to the American people? A familiar face appeared on Tucker Carlson's post-broadcast stream. It was a retired intel officer. He looked directly into the camera and said, "I briefed Congressman Schiff. I told him what we had. I told him what we didn't have." He nodded, thanked me, and then walked out and said the exact opposite on live television. The comments section blew up. Adam Schiff watched it all unfold from behind a locked office door. And he knew, the real avalanche hadn't even hit yet. The following morning, Capitol Hill felt different. Adam Schiff showed up early, flanked by 2 senior aides who looked like they hadn't slept. The hallway outside his office was thick with reporters demanding answers, cameras rolling non-stop. Inside, the panic was real. "We need a counter-narrative," one aide said, pacing. "Say it's a smear campaign, targeted disinformation." But Schiff knew it wasn't that simple. The files Kash Patel released weren't fabricated. They weren't rumors. They were his own office's records, annotated, time-stamped, signed by staffers. Worse, Bongino had just announced that a former staffer from Schiff's committee had agreed to testify, voluntarily. "I won't go down alone," she allegedly said. The news hit like a punch. Meanwhile, Bongino and Patel were just getting started. They sat down for a follow-up live stream, grinning like men who knew the storm was only beginning to swirl. "We've got whistleblowers now," Bongino said, leaning into the mic. "This wasn't one bad decision, it was an operation. And Schiff ran it." Patel nodded. "Remember, this guy weaponized national security. He used classified briefings as political ammo. People trusted him, and he twisted it for the cameras. Within hours, conservative lawmakers began circulating a draft motion, a formal House investigation into Adam Schiff's handling of intelligence materials. Schiff's staff urged him to speak out again, to defend himself. But he sat silently at the edge of his desk, staring at the floor. Outside, the press shouted questions he could no longer ignore. And just then, another Patel document hit the wire, this one with redacted names. But it hinted at something bigger, a covert link between Schiff's office and a private consulting firm with deep ties to a foreign lobbying outfit. The blood drained from Schiff's face. This was no longer about headlines. This was survival. By mid-afternoon, the fuse had officially lit. The former Schiff aide, Emily Larson, stepped into a packed subcommittee room. Cameras weren't allowed, but audio was. Her testimony would be live-streamed to the American public. She looked nervous but resolute. "I was a senior staffer on the House Intelligence Committee," she began. "And I'm here because the truth matters more than my job, or my party." Adam Schiff, watching from a secure office nearby, leaned forward, visibly trembling. Emily continued, "I was instructed to withhold dissenting intel assessments before hearings. I was told to pre-brief the congressman only on talking points that supported a specific narrative. And I was threatened with reassignment when I pushed back." A murmur rippled through the room. "And yes," she added, "I was asked to coordinate with a private consulting firm to help build public messaging campaigns under the guise of foreign threat awareness." Kash Patel sat in the back row of the chamber, arms crossed, watching quietly. He already knew what she'd say, he'd seen the emails. But now the public was hearing it out loud. Reporters ran out mid-testimony to blast headlines. Ex-Schiff staffer confirms political use of classified intelligence, consulting firm named in bombshell whistleblower testimony. By the end of the session, committee chairs were already calling for emergency briefings. Meanwhile, Schiff's inner circle started to crack. One senior aide submitted a letter of resignation, citing a fundamental loss of trust in the process. As Emily stepped out of the hearing room, she passed Bongino in the hallway. He gave her a quiet nod. She stopped and said, "They told me I'd regret speaking up. But you know what? I regret staying silent for so long." Schiff sat alone in his office, the blinds drawn. Outside, the chants had started. Protesters, news trucks, and congressional staff buzzed like hornets. And then Schiff's phone buzzed. It was a subpoena. The subpoena hit like a hammer. Adam Schiff stared at the envelope, his name printed boldly across the top. It was official. Congress was demanding he testify under oath before a special investigative committee. He didn't speak. He didn't move. His aides hovered silently, watching their boss unravel one thread at a time. Across the city, Patel and Bongino hosted an emergency broadcast. This time, the tone was darker, more serious. "This isn't about a headline anymore," Bongino said. "This is about accountability at the highest level of power." Patel nodded. "We just saw a sitting member of Congress get subpoenaed for manipulating intelligence. Think about that." And the public was thinking. Polls started shifting. Schiff's approval rating, once solid among his base, was in free fall. Donors pulled funding. Endorsements vanished. A major Democratic PAC announced it would pause its support. The shockwaves reached the White House. When asked about the investigation, the press secretary gave a tight-lipped response: "We support transparency. The facts must lead the process." But behind the scenes, a flurry of Democratic strategists scrambled to assess the damage. Meanwhile, Schiff's legal team prepared a frantic defense. They planned to paint it as a political hit job, a coordinated smear, but even internal emails revealed contradictions in their story. And just when they thought things couldn't get worse, they did. A leaked phone transcript surfaced, one between Schiff and a senior editor at a major newspaper. In it, Schiff allegedly urged the outlet to bury a negative story in exchange for access to classified perspectives on another high-profile case. The public reaction was immediate. #SchiffNew began trending on social media. Cable news ran wall-to-wall coverage. Several former Intel officials released a joint statement demanding his resignation. And Kash Patel? He stepped in front of a row of American flags and simply said, "The truth is not a weapon, it's a responsibility." Adam Schiff forgot that. And now, the country won't. The hearing room was tense, packed shoulder to shoulder. Cameras lined the back wall. Staffers whispered nervously. The entire nation was watching. Adam Schiff entered slowly, jaw clenched, expression unreadable. This was no longer about party lines. This was personal, his career, his credibility, and possibly his freedom on the line. The chairman wasted no time. "Congressman Schiff, you are under oath. Did you knowingly suppress dissenting intelligence to advance a political narrative?" Schiff took a deep breath. "No, I did not suppress anything. I acted in the interest of national security." Then came the first exhibit. An internal memo dated 6 months prior, sent directly to Schiff's inbox. The memo warned that the evidence being presented in public hearings was incomplete and contradicted by at least 3 agencies. He had ignored it. Next came the emails, one from Schiff's staff instructing aides to tighten the language before a televised briefing. Phrases like "low confidence" were replaced with "highly credible." The changes were not minor, they shifted the entire perception of the threat. One committee member leaned forward. "Do you still stand by your testimony?" Schiff hesitated. The cameras caught it. The public saw it. He tried to pivot. "We had to make quick judgments in an evolving situation." There wasn't always time to, but Bongino, seated behind the press table, let out a low, audible laugh. The room caught it. It cut through the air like a blade. The chairman's voice turned sharper. "We're not here for politics, Congressman. We're here for the truth." That's when the final exhibit dropped. A recording, verified by 3 sources, of Schiff in a closed-door fundraiser, boasting about his role in driving the national conversation and controlling the leak tempo. The audio was damning. Gasps rippled through the room. Even Schiff's allies looked away. His voice cracked slightly. "That recording is taken out of context." But no one believed it. Outside the building, protesters held signs that read, "Truth is not a weapon, no one is above accountability," and back in the hallway, Kash Patel stood silently watching through the glass, arms crossed. He didn't smile. He didn't gloat. He just waited. Because he knew. The reckoning had only just begun. The hearing's fallout was immediate and relentless. Within hours, 3 House committee members, 2 of them longtime allies of Schiff, publicly distanced themselves. One even called for his removal from the Intelligence Committee. Behind closed doors, Democratic leadership held an emergency strategy session. The verdict was brutal: Schiff had become a liability. A statement would be drafted. Support would be recalibrated. But the real hammer came the next morning. The Department of Justice announced it had launched a preliminary inquiry into potential misuse of classified information and obstruction of official proceedings stemming from Schiff's actions. The walls were closing in. Kash Patel went on record, "We didn't expose Adam Schiff to win a political fight. We did it because national security was weaponized. Period. This isn't about left or right, it's about truth or deception." Dan Bongino, appearing on a major podcast, didn't hold back. Schiff played God with classified intelligence. He thought he could scare the public into believing anything. That ends now. Reporters hounded Schiff outside his D.C. residence. He kept his head down, offering only a clipped, "No comment." Meanwhile, the whistleblower, Emily Larson, was awarded formal whistleblower protections under federal law. She released a short video message: "I'm not a hero. I'm not even brave. I just couldn't keep covering for something I knew was wrong." The tide of public opinion had fully turned. The Intelligence Committee scheduled an emergency vote to suspend Schiff's clearance, unprecedented for a sitting congressman. Some called it symbolic. Others called it long overdue. As night fell on Capitol Hill, a final leak hit the wires, internal texts from Schiff's office joking about spinning the story one last time before it crashes. The media ran it non-stop. And Kash Patel, asked if this was the end, simply said, "Not even close." By Friday morning, Schiff's inner circle was disintegrating. 3 senior staffers resigned simultaneously, citing ethical conflicts and irreconcilable differences with the congressman's public statements. One even left a scathing exit letter that mysteriously found its way to the media. In it, she wrote, "What was once a commitment to justice has become a campaign of manipulation. I will not be part of it any longer." Cable networks looped her final words for hours. That same day, House Oversight released a damning interim report based on Patel and Bongino's findings. The report detailed a disturbing pattern: repeated suppression of dissenting intelligence, unauthorized media briefings, and a network of consultants who profited from insider narratives. The report named names. One of them, a longtime Schiff associate who had secured millions in contracts for strategic national messaging during the height of the fabricated briefings. The press circled like vultures. But the most damaging moment came when a longtime Democratic donor, the kind of donor who never speaks publicly, made a rare statement: "I no longer support Representative Schiff." He violated the trust of those who believed in truth over tribalism. It wasn't just politics anymore. It was betrayal. That night, Schiff appeared for a tightly scripted interview on national television. His voice was measured, but his eyes were red-rimmed. He denied wrongdoing, blamed partisan operatives, and accused Patel and Bongino of carrying out a vendetta. But even the interviewer didn't buy it. "Congressman," she asked, "why do 3 of your own staffers, and your former aide, say you lied?" Schiff froze for half a second. That clip went viral. And while the country debated every frame, every word, Kash Patel released one final message to his followers: "This isn't about us. It's about restoring what they tried to take, integrity. Justice is catching up to Adam Schiff, and it won't stop now." Capitol Hill was silent the morning the House Ethics Committee convened behind closed doors. Every seat was filled. Security was tight. Tension clung to the air like smoke. The outcome wasn't a mystery anymore, just a formality. By noon, the committee voted 14-3 to formally censure Representative Adam Schiff and recommend his removal from the House Intelligence Committee. The motion passed to the House floor within hours. As Schiff stood at the podium for what would become the defining speech of his political career, he looked tired, defeated. The room was still. Even his staunchest allies refused to meet his gaze. "I have always acted in defense of democracy," Schiff began. But halfway through, the speaker's gavel struck hard. "You've abused your post, Mr. Schiff. This chamber has spoken." Gasps followed. Some applause. Some stunned silence. Outside the Capitol, thousands had gathered. Some protested. Most simply watched the fall of a man once untouchable. Later that evening, Kash Patel and Dan Bongino streamed live one last time. "This isn't about celebrating someone's downfall," Bongino said. "It's about restoring trust in our institutions." Schiff lost his way. And now, the system worked. Patel leaned in. "And let this be a warning to anyone else thinking about turning national security into a political weapon. We're watching." That night, Schiff quietly left his D.C. residence, flanked by 2 staffers and a single duffel bag. He didn't speak to reporters. He didn't look back. And just like that, the man who once shaped headlines became one. Weeks passed, but the political quake Adam Schiff triggered was far from over. Multiple subcommittees had now launched full investigations into the broader web of manipulation uncovered by Patel and Bongino. Their findings sparked renewed calls for reforms in how intelligence is handled within Congress. Bipartisan coalitions, once unthinkable, began forming around one common message: never again. Meanwhile, Schiff had all but disappeared from public life. Rumors swirled of legal teams, sealed indictments, and quiet negotiations behind closed federal doors. But the man himself? Silent. Until one final twist. A leaked internal DOJ memo revealed that Schiff was now officially under criminal investigation for obstruction of justice and abuse of classified materials. Cable news lit up like wildfire. Patel responded publicly, "This was never personal. This was about defending the truth. We didn't bring Adam Schiff down, he did it to himself." Bongino followed up, "Accountability isn't revenge. It's justice." And Washington just got a taste of it. The ripple effect hit legacy media, think tanks, and lobbying groups. Editorial boards issued retractions. Former Intel experts publicly apologized. One major outlet called it the greatest congressional credibility crisis in a generation. Emily Larson, the whistleblower who risked everything, was invited to testify before a national ethics panel. She stood before the country and said, "I never wanted to hurt anyone. I just wanted the truth to matter again." And slowly, the tide began to turn. The headlines moved on. But for Adam Schiff, history was written. No longer the prosecutor. No longer the narrative shaper. Now, the cautionary tale.